picture this scene. Let's imagine a person about to blow out 120 candles on their birthday cake.
Which I imagine must be a really big, beautiful cake.
Exactly, enormous. But, and here's the point, they do it not from a hospital bed, maybe surrounded by machines or doctors, but with the same energy, the same agility they had at 50.
A perspective that's definitely different from what we're used to.
Absolutely. Maybe look right after the party. That's when they're planning their third career, or I don't know, a long backpacking trip.
Yeah, it literally sounds like the opening scene of a science fiction movie.
True. And yet there's an entire school of thought today that claims this scenario is not only biologically possible, but practically just around the corner. And that's exactly the focus of our exploration today.
An exploration that, let's say, it shakes up millennia of passive acceptance because after all, throughout human history, aging has been considered the only truly non-negotiable contract of our biology. You're born, you grow up, your body wears out, and inevitably the system shuts down.
Of course, it's part of the rules of the game.
Exactly, but today we're going right to the heart of a rupture in this ancient certainty. And to do so, we'll bring together two worlds that seem very far apart. On one side, the most radical frontier theories about human biology, and on the other, the purely pragmatic management of our territories and our cities.
Which, after all, is the mission of our analysis today, to break down and understand this epochal paradigm shift. We have two very different sources on the table, but as we'll see, they are deeply connected.
Where do we start?
We start with the notes and the truly disruptive theories of José Luis Cordero. He is a transhumanist futurist who literally wants to cure aging. And then, and this is where things get extremely concrete, we'll land in the real world.
In the real world, yes, with a very specific event.
Exactly. We will examine the documents from an upcoming institutional conference. It's called Longevity or Evolution. And I want to emphasize that it's written with an R followed by a hyphen. R, evolution, to highlight that it's a revolution and not just a normal demographic evolution.
A very deliberate play on words, in short.
Very much so. This meeting will take place next month in northeastern Italy, in Abano Terme, and it will show us how these visions are already forcing institutions to change the rules of the game. Not tomorrow, but today.
It will be a fascinating journey. We will start from theses that truly challenge the very foundations of current medicine, and then, as you said, immerse ourselves in the daily management of our streets, our economy.
Because after all, the extension of life doesn't happen only in laboratories.
Exactly, it clashes with urban planning, with welfare, with pensions.
So, let's start with pure theory, because to understand the practical revolution, we need to understand the intellectual spark. Who is José Luis Cordero?
Let's say he is an absolutely prominent figure in the field of transhumanism. We're talking about an engineer economist with studies at MIT in Boston, at Georgetown, at INSEAD. He's not just anybody.
No, exactly, and his guiding idea breaks all the rules. He basically claims that aging is not a natural fact. For him, it's an abnormal biological condition, in other words, a real disease.
And this is the fundamental logical step. Because if you define something as a disease, then as a consequence, it is technically treatable.
Exactly, and his most provocative concept is summed up in a powerful slogan, the death of death.
A phrase that doesn't go unnoticed.
Not at all, and to really understand this point, I thought of an analogy. Tell me if it makes sense. Let's think about a vintage car. When it starts to wear out, our standard approach is to take it to the mechanic, right? Do we replace the oil parts?
Yes, you replace the brakes, change the oil.
You patch up the rusty bodywork?
That is exactly right. Cordero's innovative methodology is as if, instead of just endlessly replacing individual components that have worn out, we tried to fundamentally alter the very chemistry of the metal itself.
At the root.
Exactly, alter it at the factory so that the car can't rust in the first place. The car analogy perfectly conveys the idea of this, let's say, structural approach. Traditional medicine works downstream on the symptoms.
You treat the blood pressure spike, you contain cognitive decline.
Exactly. Instead, Cordero's transhumanist model wants to work upstream. It wants to reprogram cells to prevent, say, the shortening of telomeres. But here, and I think this is fundamental, we need to make a clarification.
Go ahead, tell me.
We need to draw a clear line of demarcation. Cordero's positions are deliberately radical, and I want to make that clear to our listeners. They absolutely do not coincide with the current scientific consensus.
Of course, it's not like you go to your doctor today and they prescribe you a cure for aging.
Absolutely not. No doctor today would classify aging as a disease that can be solved with an injection. But the value of these theses does not lie in their immediate applicability. It lies in their strength as a cultural provocation.
In other words, they're meant to shake up the system.
Exactly. They're meant to shift the focus and the massive research funding from simply managing chronic diseases to addressing their root causes.
Right? And the way we should reach this so-called death of death. He introduces another concept that almost seems like magic, but is actually based on precise mathematics. Longevity escape velocity?
The escape velocity of longevity, yes.
Exactly. Cordero has blind faith in exponential technologies. He talks about artificial intelligence applied to medicine, genomics, stem cells, big data. And get this, he sets a timeline for reaching this escape velocity by 2045.
An extremely close date, if you think about it.
Very close. But let's try to break down this escape velocity. Is it correct to imagine it as a kind of compound interest applied to human life?
In what sense? Explain it to me.
I mean, if today's science manages to stop a disease and gives me, let's say, 2 extra years of healthy life during those extra 2 years, research keeps moving forward and advances enough to discover new treatments that give me another 3 years. In those 3 years, technology makes another leap and gives me 5 more. In short, it creates a cycle where science moves faster than my aging. The
explanation is flawless, yes. The term actually comes from astrophysics. Just like a rocket needs to reach a certain speed to escape Earth's gravity.
Okay.
In the same way, medicine needs to reach a rate of innovation capable of overcoming the gravity of biological time. And it's not a single discovery, it's a combined and non-linear effect. There, it maps proteins in days instead of years. This speeds up gene therapies, which in turn improve the use of stem cells.
It's practically a chain reaction. But here, I have to admit, my skepticism kicks in.
That's fair, it's understandable.
Why are we talking about 2045? It's coming up very soon. If we think about how long it takes today just to approve a regular anti-inflammatory drug, that date isn't so far-fetched. It's not a number Cordero just threw out there to, attract Silicon Valley venture capitalists' money.
Look, that's a solid objection. And in fact, analyzing these sources requires extreme caution. The technologies he mentions are real, right? Biomedical AI stem cells. They're at the center of billion-dollar investments today.
Yes, there have been advances. The
advances are astonishing. But the prediction of making death optional by 2045 is pure avant-garde. It's a vision. Promoting such an imminent date is a formidable rhetorical tool.
It creates a sense of urgency.
Exactly. It attracts capital, inspires young researchers, and forces society to ask itself questions. It helps to push the debate forward. Maybe we won't achieve immortality by 2045, but the drive to try will still give us years of healthy life.
And here lies the central point of our journey today. Because while scientists and futurists debate whether and when we will reach this escape velocity, there is one huge fact. Society is already aging. Right now.
And this cannot be ignored.
Exactly. Cordero's theories remain just theories if we don't understand how to reorganize the real world. And this brings us to the second part of our exploration. The longevity revolution.
The famous conference you were talking about.
That very event will be held on Saturday, April 18th at the Alexander Palace in Abano Terme in the province of Padua. And we're not reading the program to promote it, but because northeastern Italy is a privileged laboratory for this topic.
Absolutely. It has a very advanced demographic and a dynamic productive fabric. It's the perfect place to understand the real challenges. If we connect transhumanist theories to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that moving from a life expectancy of 70 years to 90 profoundly reshapes the entire socioeconomic ecosystem.
So it's not just a matter of building more clinics.
Not at all. This conference is fundamental precisely because it brings together different perspectives. If we give an entire population 20 or 30 more years of life, how do we prevent the pension and welfare systems from collapsing? The real revolution is turning demographics from a burden into an opportunity for development.
And just looking at the program, you can see that the scale of change is real. The morning of April 18th will present the results of the Lions study groups and a technical scientific roundtable. There will be an initial summary by Renzo Taffarello. And this is where things get really interesting. When we think about the elderly, right? we immediately think of hospitals, illnesses.
Of care and assistance.
Exactly. But looking at this program, they're talking about tourism,
Yes.
they're talking about finance, personnel, economics, business, and there's a panel on enhancing the skills of people over 65. We're talking about an economic and social force, not patients to be cared for. It's
The recognition of the so-called silver economy, ignoring the free time, skills, and spending power of those over 65. Today, that would be a huge strategic mistake for any region. But the program goes even further, addressing how we need to adapt our cities. Take the panel on housing and territory with ISTRA A.
Now, I wanted to ask you a question about this. What does housing really mean in this context? We're not talking about building nursing homes with bigger TVs, are we?
No, it's exactly the opposite. Institutionalization, that is the idea of isolating elderly people in large healthcare facilities, is an outdated model. The housing of the future means designing entire neighborhoods where an 85-year-old can live completely independently. And how do you actually do that in practice? With home automation to prevent domestic accidents by eliminating architectural barriers without making everything look like a hospital. And above all, with intergenerational co-housing. Imagine complexes where university students pay low rent in exchange for a bit of company and light assistance to their older neighbors. Wow.
That's a beautiful idea.
And that's why ISRA is at the table. They are historic institutions for assistance. But today they need to radically innovate the very concept of residence, bringing services into neighborhoods.
And this, among other things, ties in perfectly with another crucial topic of the conference, mental and relational well-being. We often forget how dangerous loneliness is. It is
Lethal. From a biological point of view, chronic loneliness raises cortisol levels and systemic inflammation. It is a risk factor for mortality comparable to smoking or obesity.
incredible.
That's why the approach must be multidimensional. And if you look at the round table at 11:30, opportunities and gaps in longevity, you'll understand right away.
Yes, I see that there aren't just doctors on stage.
Exactly. Moderated by Renzo Taffarello, there will be Professor Filippi for Sociology, Professor Borsato for Economics, representatives from Israel, but also Dr. Mason from the CGA Secretariat of Mestre and Ulstu.
In other words, they make the Academy interact with businesses, artisans, and public healthcare.
That's right. We need to connect the dots.
Okay, but... well, I have to be the party pooper, the killjoy.
Go ahead, please.
All of this sounds wonderful. Smart neighborhoods, co-housing, tailor-made tourism, artificial intelligence. But we live in the real world. And in the real world, healthcare already struggles to clear the waiting lists for a simple blood test.
True,
Public transportation has its own problems. I mean, how can we believe that a conference could really spark such a revolution? Isn't there a risk that it just becomes yet another event where people shake hands, say nice things, and then the documents end up in a drawer collecting dust?
Look, that's a very healthy and well-founded skepticism. Brilliant ideas without politics and institutions remain confined to the hotels where conferences are held. And this is where the event in Abano Terme makes a decisive leap.
Meaning?
The meeting ends at 12:30, not with a pat on the back, but with the proposal and presentation of the Lions Manifesto for Longevity.
Which could just be yet another declaration of good intentions, though.
It could. But the explicit goal of the manifesto is to open a permanent roundtable for discussion with the Veneto region and other regions. And in fact, the conclusions are entrusted directly to the president of the Veneto region, Alberto Stefani.
Ah, so the political decision maker is at the table. Does this change things a bit?
This is the definitive bridge between theory and real life. Bringing the highest regional authority to discuss these topics means moving from academia to legislation. It means starting to talk about changing zoning plans, transportation funding, and regional policies.
What does all this mean for those listening to us?
It means that political action is essential so that the technologies of Cordero and the social models we've discussed don't remain a luxury for the few, but instead become the standard for the entire Northeast and, in the future, for all of Italy.
All right, let's quickly retrace the thread of this analysis because we've covered astronomical distances today.
Truly sidereal.
We started with the dizzying visions of José Luis Cordero, who challenges us to consider aging as a treatable engineering problem. And from there, from this extreme idea about 2045, we came back down to earth in Veneto.
At Avono Terme.
That's right, to see how the longevity revolution on April 18th will seek to transform these changes into real policies. housing, tourism, and empowerment for those over 65, which become political debate and not just living room topics. And what if someone was wondering why all this is relevant to someone who is perhaps only 20 or 30 years old today? Well, because longevity is rewriting the rules of work, the economy, and the cities we live in every day. It is
The change that will spare no one. And look, on this note, I'd like to leave our listeners with a new idea to reflect on independently, one that truly connects the visionary theory with the social practice we've discussed.
Go ahead, I'm curious.
Let's try this exercise in imagination. If, in the coming decades, society truly manages to normalize a healthy, active life that easily surpasses 90 or even 100 years, how will our perception of life's key milestones change?
There are the classic phases: study, work, retirement.
Exactly. Up until now, we've had a rigid model. You study until you're 25. You work continuously until you're 65, and then you retire. But if you have an entire century of good health ahead of you, maybe that idea becomes obsolete.
Makes sense.
We'll see the rise of an era where a person will have 3 or 4 completely different careers. It might take decades. Sabbaticals at 60, then going back to university at 70, living several different family lives over the course of one single, very long existence.
It's a prospect that honestly makes you feel a bit dizzy, but in a good way. It means going from having a short, fixed-term contract to having a huge canvas, all waiting to be painted. The rules of the game are changing right now, and it's up to us to decide how to play this unprecedented match. We'll stop here, but keep asking questions and exploring these transformations. A warm greeting to everyone.